I'm Valerie and welcome to the TaylorMade Workshop. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made this butcher block style shelf for our smoker out of wood like this. Stick around. The first thing I did was to get on the internet and look at a bunch of pictures of different cutting boards so that I could design my pattern. Once I had that, I drew it out onto graph paper so that I would know what dimensions I needed to make my cut list. The best tool to use for cutting these to length would be my miter saw, and where I already made my lines, I want to make sure that the blade is going to fall on the outside of the line so that I don't end up cutting just a little too short. I want to work from my smallest cuts to my largest cuts. So my smallest cuts are supposed to be 1/4 inch. I'm going to cut them a little bit bigger than 1/4 inch because I'm going to run both surfaces through the planer so that I have a smoother side to glue together. I'm going to have my husband help catch the wood as it comes off just to make it easier.
I'm the eye candy.
Yes, baby. I am going to start planing the surfaces that are going to be glued to each other. I need to have a good flat surface so that they can glue together and there won't be any gaps. All the rest of the pieces I know I'm just going to want them 1/4 inch thick. I set my dial over here to 1/4 inch so it won't go any thinner than that. And I'm just going to baby step down, 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 alternating, running it through one way, then the other way, then back to that way, then back to that way, until I have all smooth surfaces and it's at that 1/4 inch that I want.
Okay, so we've moved inside. Why are we inside?
Well, we're inside because it's only 20 degrees out in the garage, and I know that the glue is not going to work as effective in 20-degree weather. Plus, I'm a wimp and it's cold. So, we have moved indoors.
Okay, so I see you got a bunch of scrap wood out. Why do you have all the scrap wood?
Yeah, okay, so not only am I clamping this way, but I want to make sure that I'm clamping one piece of scrap wood under the project and one piece above the project. That way, the seams don't end up wonky, they're all straight and true.
Okay, so, but you're gluing everything, so you're going to have glue squished out from the seams.
Right.
How do you keep the scrap wood and stuff from gluing to the project?
Right, so that's a good tip I found is I use wax paper anywhere that my project is going to touch something else. So I have wax paper underneath the clamps. I'm going to put wax paper over each piece of scrap wood so that I don't end up gluing my project to the wrong thing and ending up having to start over. That would not be fun.
Okay, and so you got this wet rag here. What is that for?
Okay, so now that I have everything laid out and ready, I want to make sure that, first of all, I've inspected each piece of wood and turned the best side up so that it's ready, so that all I have to do is glue, put it together, glue, put it together. But I also want to use a wet rag to wipe off each piece of wood, make sure that there's no dust and debris on each piece of wood. And this rag is not wet, it's barely damp, because I don't want to soak the wood. I just want to wipe it off and get it clean for the best adhesion.
And so you got a bunch of clamps here. It looks like they're kind of all pre-adjusted and ready to go.
Yeah, the clamps, I've prepped them so that they're just bigger than my project, so that all I do is put it on and clamp it. Once I start gluing, the top clock is kind of ticking, so I want to make sure that I have everything as ready as I can before I get started. I just want to make sure that the whole, there we go, like that. The whole surface is covered. I'd rather have it squish out and have to wipe that up right after I put the whole piece together than to not have enough glue and it break later.
Okay, it's sat overnight, the glue's dried, it's set, we need to pull the clamps off to see what we've got. What are we expecting to see at this point?
Well, we're definitely not expecting to see it perfect. There are going to be some inconsistencies, and that's why we're going to run it back through the planer.
So it looks like we have some unevenness right here that we're going to have to correct for. So this whole piece is going to only need a little bit of work.
Because I didn't want to gum up the planer, I went ahead and scraped off as much of the glue as I could, keeping the scraper parallel to the wood so I don't gouge the wood. Then I'm going to run my orbital sander over it, just a quick pass to clean it up a little bit more, and then we'll do the planing.
So you can see that it's completely flush on both sides. Okay, so we've run it through the planer, we've got it cleaned up and kind of ready to go. What is the next step?
The next step is gluing the two pieces together. We talked about not being able to run the whole piece through the planer because it's just ½ inch too wide.
So now, because we can't run this through the planer, if we get any misalignments now, what are we going to do?
We're going to from here on out, we're hand sanding with an orbital sander and even by hand. So we want to be extra careful that we get these lined up really well and that they're lined up this way and this way.
And by putting these and sandwiching the ends, it's going to line up this seam more flush, right?
Yes. And I'm not tightening down all the way, just enough so that it's holding, so that we can get it, and then start going this way with them.
Okay, it's been drying for several hours now. The glue, I'm guessing, is dried. We've come a long way since that pile of wood we started with.
Yep.
So where do we go from here?
Well, we're kind of in the home stretch. Now we're going to take all the clamps off. We need to clean up the edges here. We're going to do that on the miter saw and then start sanding. And in the process of sanding, we're going to round the edges so it's not so sharp.
Okay, so let's pull the clamps off and see what we got.
All right. So these edges are just a little bit off. You can see when we do it this way. So we just need to shore those up. Same with the other edge, and then start sanding. Next step is to sand. I'm going to start off with 150 grit and work my way to 220. I'm just going to kind of go and mark all the way across the whole surface so that I know when all those marks are gone, I've sanded enough.
Okay, so the next step after sanding is to apply the finish and the top coat. Unfortunately, we didn't capture that on video, so Valerie, why don't you walk us through what we did to finish this off?
Okay, the first step was to finish it off with Howard's Butcher Block oil. We put about 3 coats on that and we gave several days between each coat and after the final coat to make sure it completely soaked in and was completely dry. The reason for this is it was an oil-based product and we wanted to make sure it was completely set before we added anything else. The last step, we used General Finishes water-based top coat, applied about 3 layers and again, and we just followed the instructions on the back for application.
So here's the finished product. I think overall, I'm really pleased with it. I think it came out really, really well.
Yeah.
I think you did a good job.
Thanks.
So, you know, what did you learn in the process?
Some of the things I learned were, I think the next time I make a board, I'm going to stand each piece individually up on edge, apply the glue to each piece, and then put them all together at the same time, rather than glue, attach, it gave a chance for some stuff to get dry before I got to the end, and I think that ended up with them being a little more uneven. Another thing was, when we glued the two pieces together, we sandwiched our boards to make it smooth at the edges. We didn't do that in the first step. We sandwiched it together pretty good in here, but we didn't get it right at the edge, and because of that, we ended up with some pieces that were a little offset, and it took a little more work to straighten them out. But yeah, other than that, I learned a lot, and I look forward to making another one.
Well, let's get this installed on the smoker.
Let's do it. Here's the project all complete. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. If you have any questions, post them below, and I'll see you next time on the Tailor Made Workshop. In this step, I'm squaring up my miter gauge at a 90 degree. In this step, I'm
Okay, so we're inside. Why are we inside?
Well, we moved inside because it's only 20 degrees out in the garage, and I know that the glue is not going to work as well as it would if we're indoors. Plus, I'm a wimp and it's cold out there, so.
Apparently our dog wants to be in the shop.